On January the 20th of 2022, undercover officers from the LAPD began tailing a suspicious motorcyclist in the West Hills area. After running the license plate through the system, they determined that the vehicle was stolen. Law enforcement initiated a traffic stop, but the rider, 30-year-old Ruben Contreras Jr., sped away. He pushed the motorbike to well over 100 miles per hour as he passed other vehicles and blitzed through intersections. CBS LA's Sky 2 chopper provided live aerial coverage of Contreras barreling down Roscoe Boulevard. Upon reaching the intersection with Fallbrook Avenue, he smashed head-on into a vehicle. The live feed captured the moment that Contreras was launched high into the air, spinning and flailing uncontrollably. The news anchor was heard exclaiming, "Oh my gosh!" And when the feed cut back to the studio, she was seen clasping her hands to her mouth. After taking a moment to compose herself, she told viewers, we just saw that motorcycle crash into a car there at the intersection. Contreras was found several hundred feet away from where the collision had occurred. He was pronounced dead at the scene, with the coroner's office listing blunt force trauma as the cause. Number 6. Victor Bario. By the summer of 2016, Spaniard Victor Bario had amassed great recognition as a novice bullfighter. On July the 9th, Bario took part in a corrida associated with the Vaquilla del Ángel, translated as Angel's Heifer, celebrations in Teruel. The event was televised live, and the 29-year-old matador stood before a bull weighing over 1,150 pounds, named Lorenzo. Bario held his red cape in front of the bull as he prepared to deal the killing blow with his sword. In a split second, Lorenzo plunged his horns into the bullfighter's body, launching him in the air, and then gored him while he was on the ground. Other performers intervened to distract Lorenzo, while Bario lay motionless with his eyes wide open. The massive bull's horn had pierced his armpit and struck his lung, rupturing his thoracic aorta. The bullfighter was carried off and died within minutes from massive blood loss. The incident marked the first time in over 3 decades that a bullfighter died during a corrida in Spain. Number 5. Mark Vivian Foe. 28-year-old soccer player Mark Vivian Foe was on the pitch for his country, Cameroon, as they faced Colombia in the semi-final of the 2003 FIFA Confederations Cup. The match was held on June the 29th of 2003 at the Stade de Gerland in Lyon, France. Even though he'd recently suffered from gastric problems and dysentery, the defensive midfielder was adamant to play. Lyon was Foe's adopted hometown, and he'd previously achieved notable results playing for the local team. In 2000, they'd won the French League Cup, and a year later, the Division 1 League. In the 72nd minute of the Confederate Cup semi-final match with no other players near him, Foe fell face forward in the center circle of the pitch. Footage would show him wide-eyed and unresponsive. Attempts to resuscitate him on the pitch failed, and he was carried off via stretcher. Medical staff tried to restart Foe's heart for 45 minutes before he was pronounced dead. An autopsy discovered evidence of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, a hereditary condition known to increase the risk of sudden death during physical exercise. Foe's tragic passing largely overshadowed the tournament. Cameroon qualified to face France in the final, but players from both countries argued that the match should be postponed out of respect for Foe. It was eventually held and won by France. During the awards ceremony, 2 Cameroon players held up a large photo of Foe with a runner-up medal attached to it. Number 4. Musa Ruiz. 25-year-old Moroccan sports presenter Musa Ruiz was officiating an awards ceremony at a sports hall in the coastal city of El Jadida in August of 2015. During the live broadcast, after several minutes of speaking into the microphone, Ruiz suddenly collapsed. Others in the sports hall rushed to his aid, and an overall state of panic was reported to have spread among spectators. The footage was subsequently picked up by local and international media outlets, which ran stories claiming that Ruiz had died on air after suffering a cardiac arrest. Among them was Morocco World News. However, the outlet published a subsequent report in which they stated that the incident had been a prank. Morocco World News reporters had gotten in touch with Ruiz, who claimed that the act of him collapsing on live TV was meant to be a joke. It reportedly backfired when the video went viral, as he was inundated by phone calls from people asking if he was all right. Number 3. Adam Johnson. After considering a retirement from professional ice hockey, forward Adam Johnson decided to sign with the Nottingham Panthers of the Elite Ice Hockey League in the summer of 2023. On October the 28th of that year, the Panthers squared off against the Sheffield Steelers at the Utilita Arena. At the 35th minute of the live televised game, Steelers player Matt Petgrave ended up with his left leg high in the air and angled towards Johnson, who was in possession of the puck. They collided and Petgrave's skate cut deep into Johnson's neck. The latter struggled to his feet and tried to skate back to his team bench. He left a trail of blood behind him, and blood also soaked his jersey as a teammate tried to apply pressure to his wound. Johnson then collapsed on the ice. Paramedics tended to his devastating injury while other players locked arms and formed a protective ring around him, partially obstructing the scene from the view of over 8,000 fans in attendance. Players and spectators were subsequently asked to leave the arena. 29-year-old Johnson was pronounced dead at Sheffield's Northern General Hospital, with the autopsy report confirming that it was from the wound to his neck. South Yorkshire Police launched an investigation to determine if Petgrave had intended to deliver the fatal strike. In the footage, he appeared to have collided with another Panthers player, resulting in him losing balance and his leg remaining suspended in the air as he fell. In November, South Yorkshire Police announced the arrest of a man on suspicion of manslaughter in connection to the incident. They didn't specifically name Petgrave in the statement. As of September the 2nd of 2024, the man was rebailed until November the 11th, and the investigation was ongoing. In a Twitter statement, the Panthers described Johnson's death as a freak accident, while the man's teammate Weston Michaud speculated Petgrave's actions were unintentional, and anyone suggesting otherwise is mistaken. The hockey world was shocked by Johnson's death, with a number of leagues opting to make neck guards mandatory in the aftermath. Today's topic was requested by Agumon 90210 and Chris Conkwright 9259. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Juan Jumalon. On November the 5th of 2023, 3 men approached the gate of a home in Calamba, Philippines, where radio man Juan Tumpag Jumalon, also known as DJ Johnny Walker, was in the midst of a live broadcast. 57-year-old Jumalon regularly broadcasted his radio station, 94.7 Gold Mega Calamba FM, through his Facebook streaming. 2 of the men at the gate were allowed to enter the property after claiming they wanted to make an announcement about lost belongings. Moments later, they brandished weapons and held a staffer at gunpoint. One of them went into the booth and fatally shot Jumalon in the head before snatching his gold chain. The robbers fled the scene on a motorbike, but the broadcast kept running and the camera captured Jumalon as he lay unresponsive with blood pouring from his mouth. By late April of 2024, all of the suspects involved in the murder and robbery were arrested. They were identified as Triggerman Julieto Dumaug Mangumpit and his accomplices, cousins Boboy Sagare and Renante Saja Boncowell. The local authorities told the media, "We are optimistic that given the weight of evidence against them, they would be convicted by the court." If you thought those terrifying incidents aired live weren't enough, then stick around to find out how cute girls become a menace to society. Right after number 1, we've got our previous release of When Barbie Girls Go Wrong. Number 1. Allison Parker and Adam Ward. In the spring of 2012, WDBJ, a TV station in Roanoke, Virginia, hired Vesta Lee Flanagan, a multimedia journalist. Flanagan, who was professionally known as Bryce Williams, got into conflicts with photographers and other reporters within weeks of being hired. They complained to the station's news director that working with Flanagan made them feel threatened or uncomfortable. He was eventually fired in February of 2013 and, upon learning about his dismissal, lashed out at others in the newsroom, resulting in the police escorting him out of the building. The station subsequently provided security to staffers, directing them to call the police if he ever returned on the premises. Flanagan was by all accounts extremely difficult in the workplace and had been fired from previous stations over his diva behavior. He alleged that his termination from WDBJ had been due to discrimination on the basis of his race and the fact that he was gay. Flanagan's anger over being fired grew to the point that, in a fit of rage, he killed both his cats. On social media, he singled out WDBJ reporter Allison Parker and cameraman Adam Ward, alleging that they'd made discriminatory remarks towards him during his tenure. On August the 26th of 2015, Ward was filming Parker as she was conducting a morning interview with Vicky Gardner, the director of the local Chamber of Commerce. During the live broadcast, Flanagan walked up to the scene. A 56-second first-person view clip recorded by Flanagan on his cell phone would show him brandishing a pistol for about 15 seconds without the reporters or Gardner noticing. He took aim at 25-year-old Parker and muttered the B word before he opened fire. The reporter flinched and screamed as she was shot. Flanagan then gunned down Ward, who dropped his camera. Before the shooter turned off the live broadcast, the camera captured a brief image of him with his Glock 19 pistol in hand. Gardner was shot in the back after she'd crawled into the fetal position and tried to play dead. She survived, but had to undergo surgery that involved the removal of her right kidney and part of her colon. Parker and Ward died at the scene from gunshot wounds to the head and torso. During the course of his rampage, Flanagan had fired 15 shots. After he was identified as the primary suspect, a 5-hour manhunt ensued and law enforcement located him by tracking his cell phone. After abandoning his Ford Mustang at the Roanoke Blacksburg Airport, Flanagan fled in a rented Chevrolet Sonic on the I-81 and then north on the I-66. He was spotted by a Virginia state trooper who initiated a traffic stop. Flanagan sped away, but after a chase lasted only 2 miles, crashed into an embankment near Markham. Law enforcement found him unresponsive in his car from critical gunshot wounds. Flanagan was pronounced dead at Inova Fairfax Hospital. Before the shooting, he'd sent a 23-page fax to ABC News. He claimed that his actions were motivated by workplace discrimination and described himself as a human powder keg just waiting to go boom. He pointed to the racially motivated Charleston Church massacre, which had taken place 2 months prior, as the tipping point for the rage that had been building steadily inside him. Flanagan condemned the perpetrator Dylan Roof, but noted that he very closely identified with other mass murderers, notably Virginia Tech shooter Hui Cho and Columbine High School shooters Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold. The former reporter admitted in his writings, "Yeah, I'm effed up in the head." In late July of 2023, a blonde woman in a pink dress was caught on camera running after a man and his dog while wielding a 2x4 in the area of Blue Jays Way and Wellington Street in Toronto, Canada. The clip had begun with the unnamed woman walking away from the camera while holding her purse. In the moments that followed, she dropped her belongings, grabbed a plank from a nearby construction site and chased after the man walking his dog. The clip ended with her flinging the plank at them, narrowly missing the pet. It remained unclear what had prompted the woman's violent reaction. The clip went viral, particularly given that the incident had occurred during the recent release of the Barbie movie, starring Margot Robbie in the titular role. One of the online commenters wrote Harley Quinn dressed up as Barbie in reference to Robbie having played both roles. A subsequent clip captured from overhead showed the woman lying face down on the ground and surrounded by 3 police officers with the caption, "They got Barbie." Number 6. Alicia Amira. Over the course of a decade leading up to July of 2023, Swedish woman Alicia Amira spent nearly $130,000 on plastic surgery to transform herself into a real-life Barbie doll. The 31-year-old woman quit her high-paying PR job in Sweden and moved to London with the intention of pursuing the extreme makeover, which eventually left her unrecognizable from her former self. Discussing the enhancements on Twitter, Amira stated, "I've erased who I used to be in order to become a plastic bimbo." Her surgeries included several breast augmentations, filler around multiple areas of her face, and rhinoplasty. Amira faced heavy criticism not only for her extreme modifications, but also because of her online statements. She identified as an anti-feminist and a stern believer in traditional gender roles, speaking out in support of women choosing to become trophy wives. In 2016, Amira founded the Bimbo Movement, aimed at removing the stigma from those who chose to get surgery towards achieving hyper-feminine aesthetics. The woman who made money through her lucrative OnlyFans account was again criticized for glorifying addiction to plastic surgery. Amira admitted that the procedures were addictive but nevertheless stated an intention of having further work done in spite of the costs or risks to her health. She told a media outlet, "Bimbos don't age, we're just getting more and more plastic." Number 5. Latia Henderson. On February 3rd of 2021, motorists on Australia's Hume Highway called the police after spotting a human hand frantically waving out of the broken headlight of a Holden Commodore. Law enforcement stopped the vehicle and then confronted the two occupants, 18-year-old Latia Henderson and 24-year-old Kaylee Ketley, asking if there was someone in the trunk. Both women pretended to be shocked by the prospect. An officer then opened the trunk to find 24-year-old Nisha Phillips, who was crying, panting, and bleeding from knife wounds to her knee, shoulder, thigh, and forearm. She replied affirmatively when asked if the two women had taken her hostage, and the duo was consequently arrested. Phillips, the Commodore's owner, was friends with Ketley and Henderson, who was 12 weeks pregnant at the time. Earlier in the day, she'd been driving them around the Sydney area in her new car. Henderson had cultivated a gangster Barbie persona on social media, with one of her glamorous posts reading, "Hustle the pretty things." Ketley was also described as a wannabe gangster who'd been charged in connection with knifing a roommate in both legs the previous year. Her social media posts were often centered on guns, jewelry, or gangster rap lyrics. Since meeting the duo in November of 2020, Phillips would sometimes hang out with them and drive them around, as neither had a license. During the February drive, Ketley asked Phillips that they stop for McDonald's, which the latter refused, and then that she changed the music but was turned down once again. Upon reaching home in Glenfield, Ketley stabbed Phillips in the knee and upper thigh, telling her all you had to do was stop. Ketley threatened to make the woman squeal like a pig, telling her, "Today I am going to kill you." She took Phillips's wallet and car keys, then left with Henderson in the Commodore. Upon returning less than an hour later, Ketley expressed disappointment that Phillips was still alive and forced her into the vehicle's trunk at knife point. Henderson got behind the wheel and sometime later stopped the Commodore only to stab Phillips before resuming the drive. Social media videos were later played in court showing the pregnant teen and Henderson, both of whom had smoked ice and cannabis, joking and singing along to hip-hop songs, all the while Phillips was in the trunk. The GPS indicated that the women were heading towards Belanglo State Forest, and conversations between them suggested that they planned to further harm Phillips. While drifting in and out of consciousness, the latter managed to use her fingernail to unscrew the tail light from inside the trunk and put out her arm to alert passing motorists. Upon being arrested, her kidnappers initially claimed that they didn't know about her being in the trunk before changing their story. Henderson ultimately pleaded guilty to take and drive a conveyance and take or detain in company with the intent to commit grievous bodily harm. Ketley pleaded guilty to take and drive conveyance without consent, take or detain in company with the intent to cause grievous bodily harm, and reckless wounding. Henderson, who gave birth to a daughter as the legal proceedings unfolded, was sentenced to 7.5 years in prison, while Ketley was given a minimum sentence of 11 years. Number 4. Lindsay Shiver. Leading up to the summer of 2023, Robert Shiver, a former football player at Auburn University, had hired a private detective to tail his wife Lindsay on the island of Abigail in the Bahamas. Back in their university days, when Robert was captain of the football team, Lindsay was a cheerleader at Auburn. She was also a beauty queen, having been named Miss Houston County in 2005. The couple had 3 children and owned property stretching from Georgia to the Caribbean. Robert at one point came to believe that his wife was cheating on him and hired an investigator who followed the woman across several locations in the Bahamas. Robert's suspicions were confirmed as the detective snapped several photos of Lindsay with her lover, 28-year-old bartender Terrence Adrian Bethel. It would emerge that the woman had met him while vacationing in Great Guana Cay in the Abaco Islands, where Robert's family owned a home. She had been seeing the bartender for several months. Robert filed for divorce, reportedly sending Bethel a sarcastic message in which he thanked him for taking care of his wife. The material gathered by the private investigator was expected to weigh heavily in the custody and property dispute to come. Robert and the children remained at the couple's home in Thomasville, Georgia, while Lindsay was cut off from access to the luxurious residence and to the family's private jet. She reportedly continued traveling to the Bahamas to see Bethel. As the legal battle ensued, an unrelated break-in occurred at Grabber's Bar and Grill on Guana on July the 16th of 2023. Bethel and other staff members were asked to surrender their phones during the ensuing police investigation. Upon examining the man's phone, law enforcement discovered conversations between Lindsay, Bethel, and aspiring music producer Farron Newbold, in which they planned to murder Robert. Lindsay had sent Newbold, who was reportedly meant to carry out the hit, a photo of Robert saying, "Kill him." The trio was taken into custody, but they weren't immediately required to enter pleas, and their charges remained unspecified. Lindsay admitted to sending the messages, but claimed she was only venting to friends about her failed marriage. The alleged conspirators' next court date was set for the fall of 2023. Number 3. Georgia Warman. Started in mid-January of 2016, British woman Georgia Warman was featured prominently in international tabloids and nicknamed the Barbie Bandit after being tied to a series of robberies in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Warman grew up in the affluent village of Great Bedwin near Marlborough, Wiltshire, and a source described her as a teenage troublemaker. They said that Warman would routinely shoplift and was banned from her prom, but would usually get out of trouble by batting her eyelashes. Others who knew Warman described her as sweet and innocent, claiming she'd never been in trouble with the law. Shortly after moving to the South American country with her Argentine stepmother, she relocated to Buenos Aires with boyfriend Jose Mino, with whom she had a child. Their Manzanares home was raided by a dozen local law enforcement officers on January the 14th of 2016. Warman woke up and went to get her young son, at which point she was held at gunpoint by the police, who shouted at her to get on the floor, demanding to know where Mino was. The couple had been identified as the leading figures behind a criminal gang responsible for at least 16 robberies carried out in gated communities in the Buenos Aires area and beyond. The gang would typically tie up the wealthy homeowners and then ransack their mansions. Further raids on Warman and Mino's alleged accomplices led to the seizure of numerous goods, including laptops, jewelry, watches and cameras, but also items believed to have been used in the robberies, such as handcuffs, balaclavas, police uniforms, weapons and ammunition. 26-year-old Warman was detained under suspicion of aggravated concealment for aiding her boyfriend, who hailed from a respected family of polo players, in hiding the stolen goods. Warman denied any and all criminal activity, telling the media, "I'm entirely innocent, yet the world now knows me as the Barbie Bandit." Warman wasn't officially charged with the crime in the immediate aftermath of her detainment. She subsequently stated an intention of suing the police for mistreating her during the arrest. Number 2. Ophelia Vanity. Born Lisa Zhang, Los Angeles woman Ophelia Vanity spent thousands in an effort to turn herself into a living Barbie doll. By the spring of 2018, she had multiple procedures that included a rhinoplasty, monthly Botox injections, and an eyelid surgery to round up her natural half-Chinese eye shape. Speaking on the latter procedure, Vanity told a media outlet, "I just think that Barbie is very iconic. I'm definitely not trying to be racist." The 30-year-old accepted that Barbie dolls were made in various skin colors and ethnicities, but stated that she identified more with the original design. Vanity's decision to emulate the mainstream Barbie look had led to her gathering a following of over 70,000 on Instagram alone. She explained her desire to look like a human doll as a byproduct of low self-esteem and body dysmorphia disorder. Vanity had also battled anorexia and drug addiction. As of 2018, she was nevertheless committed to getting more surgery, including the removal of several ribs, to achieve a smaller waist, in spite of the risks to her health. Subsequent updates indicated that Vanity passed away on April the 18th of 2020 at the age of 34. YouTuber 50 Shades of Chest Pains comprehensively investigated a woman in a documentary that follows her life, from her days as a party girl to developing the Barbie obsession and to her last days. An autopsy report obtained by the YouTuber indicated that Vanity had multiple drugs in her system at the time of her death, including methamphetamine, heroin, ketamine, and methadone. The report classified the cause of death as an accident. Number 1. Abigail White. English law enforcement in Kingswood, South Gloucestershire, was called to a home on Chipperfield Drive on March the 25th of 2022. They found 22-year-old Bradley Lewis, who'd suffered a stab wound to his chest which was nearly 3 inches deep and had penetrated his heart. He passed away several hours later. The police arrested Lewis's girlfriend, 23-year-old Abigail White, for the killing. White was an OnlyFans model who called herself Fake Barbie on the streaming platform, where she'd made over $63,000 in 1 year. It emerged that she'd plunged the blade into Lewis's chest on the same day that the man had told her he no longer wanted to be in a relationship with her. In the breakup's aftermath, they went out drinking with friends. White was intoxicated and had also taken a small amount of cocaine before she started a fight with other pub goers. She and Lewis consequently left. Within minutes of them arriving at the home, a neighbor heard White screaming. The neighbor entered the home to find Lewis lying on the kitchen floor and White claiming that he'd hurt himself. Following her arrest, White admitted to delivering the fatal knife strike. She told investigators that she'd only meant to scare Lewis, adding, "Before I knew it, I had stabbed him." It emerged that a few days prior to the deadly incident, she'd knifed Lewis in the arm following an argument. On another occasion, Lewis had phoned a friend regarding White's aggressive behavior towards him and said, "Help me, she's trying to kill me, she's trying to stab me, she keeps beating me up, she's hurting me." White eventually admitted manslaughter, and in the fall of 2022, she was given a life sentence with a minimum of 18 years behind bars. Thanks for watching. If you could instantly gain 1 million followers or subscribers on any platform, which would you choose? Let us know in the comments section below.